Hi, I'm Scott Olson, co-founder of LTCshop.com and author of Long-Term Care Insurance Now. We're starting 2026 with 26 client profiles. The next 26 episodes are all about real clients. In these episodes, I will share each client's story. We'll talk about what led me to recommend this product for them or that policy for them. We'll discuss real policies, real premiums, real health histories, and how that affected the recommendations. Now, this episode is about Bill and Kim. No, Bill and Kim are not their real names, okay? But when it comes to long-term care planning, Bill and Kim are the couple that did everything right. First, a little background about them. They both work in professional jobs. They're savers. They've been saving diligently for retirement for a long time. They're very intelligent. They're do-it-yourself investors, DIY investors, okay? There's a lot of them. Bill and Kim plan on retiring in the next 5 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. Now, Bill and Kim began investigating long-term care insurance when Bill was 55 and Kim was 53. Both Bill and Kim have a family history of Alzheimer's and dementia. They each have one parent that was diagnosed with it. Most importantly, for Bill and Kim, they are very healthy. Bill had a spine problem that required minor back surgery a couple years ago, but he's made a full recovery and he has no limitations. Kim has no health problems at all. What else did they get right? Well, they listened to my podcast. That's how they found me. They read my book. They were also recommended to me by some other DIY investors that have worked with me in the past. They went to my website and requested an emailed customized quote to see if long-term care insurance might be a good value. They didn't want to spend a ton of time researching it if it was going to cost them an arm and a leg. So after getting the emailed quote, they decided to schedule a Zoom meeting with me. I call that first Zoom meeting step 1 of my 4-step process. This introductory call, it usually lasts about 20 minutes. Sometimes it's a little bit longer. The main purpose of this first call is to discuss health history. But we also discussed in general terms what kind of features and benefits they wanted in their policy. But health history is the biggest limitation when it comes to buying long-term care insurance. The healthier you are, the more choices you'll have. The healthier you are, the lower your premiums will be. Since they were so healthy, and since Bill had fully recovered from his back surgery a couple of years prior, I knew they would be able to get any type of policy from any one of the top companies. I sent them side-by-side comparisons of several of the top traditional long-term care insurance policies. Bill also asked for a hybrid quote as well. He said that he'd heard a lot about hybrid policies, and he wanted to compare the best hybrid to the best traditional long-term care insurance policy. I sent them the quotes and information, and after reviewing it, they decided to schedule our next Zoom meeting. I call this second meeting step 2 of my 4-step process. We reviewed all the different quotes during that meeting and all the policies, and I answered all their questions. The hybrid policy was priced about twice as much as a comparable traditional long-term care insurance policy. So they decided to apply for the traditional long-term care insurance policy. The next day, we had another Zoom meeting and we completed the application together. That took about an hour. However, during the application process, Kim remembered something about her health history, which we hadn't discussed before because it had been resolved. It was about 2 years prior she'd fainted. And it was minor, and all the tests showed there were no problems. So she thought nothing of it. It didn't even cross her mind to tell me about it. From the insurance company's perspective, fainting could be a big deal or nothing. If the fainting was caused by dehydration, that's no big deal. But if the fainting was caused by a mini stroke or a heart rhythm problem, well, then that would be a big deal. To her credit, she wanted to fully disclose everything, so I asked him to write out a full timeline: when she fainted, when she went to her doctor to discuss it, what tests her doctor gave her, any specialists she was referred to. She wrote all that out on one page and signed it, and I sent it directly to the underwriter so that he would know about this before he even saw the medical records. Here's the timeline for this couple. They went to my website and completed the policy finder form. That day, they received a customized quote via email. A couple weeks later, they reserved a spot on my calendar for step 1, the introductory call. The next day, we had that introductory call, and it lasted 21 minutes. The next day, I FedExed them detailed quotes and policy information, including a consumer's guide for long-term care. A couple weeks later, they reserved a spot on my calendar for step 2 to review the quotes and information I'd sent them. We had a 38-minute conversation where I answered all their questions about the different policies and everything that I put in that FedEx envelope. About 6 weeks later, they had more questions. They'd been studying, they'd been reading about long-term care insurance, and they had more questions for me. So they scheduled a second call to review. In particular, they wanted to review the policy I was recommending for them and all the very specific questions about how it worked. That call lasted 41 minutes. After that call, they decided to move forward with an application. It took a little over an hour to complete the application, like I said, and that's step 3 of the 4-step process, is taking the application. So a little over 4 weeks, almost 5 weeks, it took for the insurance company to get all the medical records, and their policy was approved. And they received their policy through a secure link, and a few days later, we reviewed their policy, that's step 4, and they paid their premium electronically. So what did they get? Well, their policy starts off with $750,000 of shared benefits. One spouse can use up to 2/3 of that, with the other third reserved for the other spouse. The shared amount is guaranteed to grow every year by 3% compounding. Before they reach age 80, the policy is guaranteed to have over $1.5 million of shared benefits. And it will continue to grow every year by 3% compounding for as long as they live, even when they're on claim receiving benefits. They stated that they were comfortable co-insuring. In other words, they didn't want a policy that paid 100% of the cost of their care each day. They said they would be comfortable with a policy that paid most of the cost of the care, and they had good pensions, and they were also going to draw Social Security. So they chose a daily benefit that started at $140 per day for care at home and $140 per day for care in a facility. And because of the 3% compounding, that daily benefit will be over $305 per day per spouse once they reach around early 80s, 82, 83. Originally, when we first talked, they were debating whether or not to self-insure for long-term care. So they were very comfortable with the idea of having a high deductible in order to keep the premium lower. Therefore, they chose a 180-day elimination period for their deductible. Lastly, the policy included a waiver of premium. This means that if one or both of them was receiving benefits from the policy, the premium would stop. No premiums are payable when benefits are being paid each month. For these benefits, their monthly premium is only $373.99, and that premium covers both Bill and Kim. It's not per spouse. That $373.99 covers both of them. They decided to pay the premium once per year, and that gives them an additional 5% discount. So there you have it. There's client profile number 1. Keep watching.